Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we've got ourselves a track from an act named EPTA7 titled The Wolves Breathe. And if we switch over to here, we've got ourselves a track on the screen on YouTube here, the official music video for this. Apparently, EPTA7, they are an Irish-Italian industrial alternative metal project that was originally formed in Dublin 2012. So they've been going for a while now. It's going to be good to check out the music for the first time. We're going to listen through it from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it. Let's go. What have we got? Oof. I mean, it's ferociously heavy in the low end, isn't it? Good, combination of electronic and metal elements.
Whispers leaking through the seams, gnawing softly at my dreams. Something breathing in the stone.
Red call response.
I am never here alone.
Sub drop, riser.
Spreading through the frame. Every night it sounds the same.
I do think the use of the breathing is good.
An heavy breath from below, tracing paths I shouldn't know.
Voice in the walls, they call my name, whispering slow. They feel my shame in the dark. They start to feed on
I do like the stepping of that harmonic. I'm just sorry to interrupt. I just feel like maybe the Foley is a little bit loud. Some of the breathing in Foley is a little bit loud.
every need.
Shifting when I breathe. Something moves beneath.
Press my ear against the cold. Hear 1,000 stories told.
No more light, no more calls. Only breathe from the walls.
It's nice to have that lead motif reintegrate. That was The Wolves Breathe, the official music video from EPTA7, and we're going to talk about it more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named EPTA7 titled The Wolves Breathe. In this section I'm going to provide an overall song analysis of everything from lyrics and vocals way through to studio production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts from the listener's perspective. But before we go any further, what do we think this track is about? My first take after listening through it is that we're in some sort of building or some sort of like facility or location where it's alive. It's more alive than it should be. And it's basically haunted, or there's something going on here where there's something like either, like gnawing softly at my dreams there. Like we're being possessed by this thing, or it's affecting us regardless of what we do and where we go. It could be like some sort of psychological thing, as if we're imagining things or hallucinating. To be fair, that could be an angle for it, especially when they talk about things crumbling and you press your ear against the cold and then you can kind of hear the whispers there, and then like the walls return, things reform and stuff like that, and you're trying to get closer to the answer but it never really appears. It closer to the light as per the lampshade within it there, but things click out there. The truth is something which kind of cuts you out forever. It's an interesting premise, to be fair. I think for the most part it's communicated really well by the vocals. I think that the style of vocals that we had in this made sense for this style of music that we're doing there. That kind of metallic elements kind of reminded me of some like the Doom soundtrack, the Doom game, the middle version of that from the 2016, like the soundtrack they had with like the 8-string guitars and like the synths and stuff like that there. It was kind of reminding me a little bit of that, which I appreciated. It had a nice chunky tone to it, but just with the vocals in particular, I thought the male vocals, the texture and timbre to them for the most part worked well. I think we had some moments where we kind of growled or screamed, and that's just parcel for the genre there, so I think that worked too. It might have been nice to have had like a couple of very small kind of comments there, quick comments. It might have been nice to have had like wider sounding vocals within the mix then, just to kind of really hammer home the kind of the heaviness of those kind of like growl parts. They're just a bit more kind of size and scope to them, You could have even have harmonized the growls with like a high and a low one there. I may have missed this. There was also a lady vocalist who was singing there as well in some parts there for a nice, adjustment of alt lead. It could have been good to have the male and female vocalists kind of do their kind of growly stuff at the same time. I may have missed that though. Effectively, I think the note choices we had were good. It was relatively minimalist. A lot of this song was basically about the groove with the rhythm guitars, bass and drums and lead elements on the tails of each of those. But yeah, effectively they told the story that they needed to. The rhyme scheme and the way that we phrased those lines within the verses became to a point where you would kind of literally expect the amount of syllables that you were going to have. And it might have been nice to have also adjusted the amount of syllables, amount of words, to kind of like change the phrasing rhythmically of those lines occasionally as well, just to add further interest throughout the later part of the piece. But in terms of it being a track that you could kind of listen along to or kind of enjoy nodding your head along to, it worked well in terms of that sort of like repetition of cadence. I think that it was good to adjust the vocal textures and timbres as we go through the piece there, to filter some parts out in those interlude sections there, and then to return to the motif and kind of have that harken for. So ultimately I think it was a good use of the 4 minutes 28 across the board. I don't know if this track would have been improved by having a dedicated additional solo section from like an alt lead or anything like that. Again, I think having the different vocalists did improve things. I mean, like objectively, the start of the piece there where you have the breathing, which is not something I mentioned in the vocal section, because honestly I see it as more of a rhythmic device, like from a percussion perspective. And I have to be honest with you, with the track being called The Wolves Breathe, it makes sense that you would have breathing through it. There was also a moment where like the door scraped open and something escaped and then things kind of fell apart. I do wonder whether this is more kind of a thing where we could have potentially have had either the music stop or the scrape was just a little bit kind of sharp in the mix at that point, which is why I paused it. The breathing was a little bit loud in the mix occasionally. It was like we kind of compressed everything to be a similar loudness there, but it's also not bad. Again, like if you want the breathing to be pervasive, then that's going to be as loud as it needs to be. I thought that the combination of elements beyond the breathing though, with the use of those, again, really kind of clicky metal drums with those machine gun kicks, the triplets, the way they kind of pushed forward with the snares and other sort of feels almost like kind of like excision level dubstep, with the bass synths kind of being very sort of abrasive and monstrous sounding in the low end, the guitars kind of thumping along. I'm not sure if they were double tracked with different takes or if they kind of put A and B on each side. but they were nice and chunky in the low end as well. It was very much a sort of bass mid-range focus, with the vocals being more present in the mid to uppers because of the room they were allowed to have. But the power meeting was good though. I liked the mixture from quarters and eighths there. It could have even been 16ths with how slow the tempo was. One dun 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 dun. Yeah, no, it was 16ths. Great use of flams and occasional bits for fill transitions, not overcomplicating the drum parts, again being more about the groove. We had the lead parts come in, you know, we just had a kind of a droning kind of sound there that sounded incredibly ominous before you had a drum fill harkening into the next part. And I just like that they chose certain notes that it created a sense of dread there within the minor key present within the chord harmonies. And we did include some sort of note passages there, more melodic parts on the guitar to switch things up. And the same that we kind of adjusted and added some new drum textures around the midsection there with some sort of ghost notish kind of like sub-16ths or 30 seconds. And we also around the 220 mark, when we had the lady come in with the vocals, we did actually have things kind of come down a little bit, which was nice. You know, we didn't just have things the same intensity the whole entire time. It's just that with the post-production as it was, it kind of seemed like a similar loudness the entire time. We had some industrial drum textures as well though, such as at 305 mark, which was a nice sort of adjustment from the main sort of like drum kit that we had there. And even around the 343 mark, we had like a 1, 2, 3, 4 change of tempo, I suppose, to go like 4 to the floor, which is kind of fun. Even if it was like 1 and 2, and it's just a change of pace and groove there that lets you know we're building up into something. Yeah, a lot of that is what's been put in there, what I've sort of described there, and I feel like, you know, like going back over it and kind of double checking my thoughts and affirming things has led me to believe that there was enough compositional diversity in order to be able to justify the length of the track. I think that across the board, the various sort of synth layers, the different drum tones, the bass and guitars, etc., were pretty well represented in the mix. Now I understand the note choices, why they are included there, and I feel like they created a nice sort of ground floor for what was going on with the vocals, and then the breathing and Foley sounds, even though I do sort of maintain they're a little bit too present. That's more of a production thing than anything else. Thematically, the track was minor leaning, which makes sense considering this is not a happy situation for anyone to be in. It sounds like they're going through a dreadful, terrible time. So it makes sense that we go around but not just the minor, but also the Phrygian, that we have these kind of dissonant, uncertain textures or interval choices with the lead elements within the piece that would kind of work in some chromatics there for a bit of discomfort there, whether it's with the vocals or the guitars or anything like that. And yeah, honestly, nice, great use of sub drops and sort of like rises as well in certain parts. The studio recording, mixing and mastering is pretty good. Again, aside from what I mentioned about the leveling of the breathing and the Foley stuff, we've already spoken about that, and that's basically just because we have an applicable critique part, just assume that's been spoken about at that stage. Vocals are present for the most part. Again, it would have been nice for the guitars to be a little bit wider in the mix. I just think they maybe A-B'd it same take, and that's okay. Just nice and chunky in the low end with the kicks and basses and drums and stuff like that. I still nonetheless appreciate that there was Foley present to sort of further help push the sound forward. Nice and loud bus compression limiting his handle, definite side chaining there. It does remind me of a lot of early 2010s dubstep there with the metal twist there, kind of like Sullivan-esque. In terms of applicable constructive critique though, just about the leveling of the Foley and then the width of some of the elements, including the growls. From a final general listener's perspective, it was cool though, I think, to have the breathing in it and to have the sound of the door opening and everything like that. I think it might make less sense if you're listening to it from just purely like the screeching door. I suppose if like we look at it from like a horror perspective, it makes sense. The breathing makes sense from like a purely audio experience. I think that's fine. It might need to be a little bit more subtle, but that's okay. Ultimately, I do appreciate what we're trying to do here for the most part. I wish everyone involved all the best luck in the future with their musical endeavors. Good first impression, but thank you for watching my review of this track from EPTA7, titled The Walls Breathe, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you need to help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next SPRX. Spiderhands out.